like you've got
Yeah.
a fun job you're doing.
It's enjoy. I like people. I like learning about people, and I'm a big believer that no matter that this is kind of the inspiration of this is I think everybody's got a lesson to teach. I think everybody's got something that they can give. Even a 2-year-old, we learn so much from kids.
Oh,
I
God,
think
yes.
people who are 90 years old, 2 years old, and everything in between can teach us something. And I like to learn.
And we're never too old to learn.
Absolutely,
I'm going to
never.
learn to the day I'm gone.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what's your name and where are you from?
My name is Marilee Duncan, and I am originally from LA.
All right. Um, if you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Go for my dreams.
Mm,
Don't get scared. Go
mm.
for it.
Did you go for your dreams?
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
What scared you?
Well, I think one was the age. Girls weren't really looked at as doing. I wanted to go into the medical field, and the only real option was nursing. And there was a part of me that wanted to be a doctor, but most girls didn't go for that, back then. So I was going to be an RN. I wanted to be an RN, and I got accepted to school for RNs and at a high school. And I had worked at a convalescent hospital for many years, or not many years, for a couple of years, and during high school. And I got disillusioned.
Mm.
I thought that all nurses must be cranky old women. And I thought I don't want to be that. Darn. Wish I'd had a different view at the
Absolutely.
time. So
Absolutely.
then I wanted to become a paramedic. And one of my stories is I was out of high school, and the LA County Fire Department was the only way to become a paramedic at the time. And they opened up the field to women for the first time. And it was still considered, the firemen's wives didn't want any women living at the firehouse, heaven forbid. And they're going to, do something to our husbands. And so the LA County opened it up, kind of they had to. And if I remember correctly, there was like 3,000 women that took the test. I mean, there was like 8,000 people that took the test. We're talking LA County. And I think if I remember right, there was like 3,000 women, 3 or 600, somewhere in there, passed the written, and I was in that, and then went to orals, and I passed the orals, and then we got put on a waiting list.
Wow.
And it took 3 or 4 years before LA County really hired. And by then, I had met my husband, started my family, didn't want to work 48 on, 48 off. So
life circumstances have changed.
yeah, and I mean, as much as I would have loved to have done that and wonder where my life would have gone, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love my kids, and
There's
overall, pretty much like my life.
No regrets in regards to that.
No, just not really. It would have been interesting. Yeah, I would have had, I'm sure, a different life.
Absolutely.
But
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I can't exactly start over. So
Absolutely. You've got a good attitude. Tell me what the most important thing for people to understand is.
Communication.
Mm.
I have always taught my kids to communicate. If you don't talk to people, your family, your kids, especially kids in particular, you can't share what you're feeling or what you're thinking. And so I made it a point of constantly telling my kids I loved them. I mean, we had a joke, their friends would go, "Oh God, your mom." But I used to, "Hey, Lori, I love you." And she'd go, "Mom, Robin, hey," and I would do it, try not to do it too much in front of their friends, but I would. And they'd be at one end of the house, I'd be at the other, and, "Hey, Robin," just kind of stuff like that. And then, the idea of talking things through, letting them know why you made decisions you did. I worked, while they were growing up, I was the director of a nonprofit counseling center. And so and we lived in a small town, Tehachapi, California. And I was privy to information about some families, and it was a smallish town. So there were times when I had to make a decision about whether I thought it was safe for my kid to go somewhere or be at someone's house, and I couldn't tell them why, and that was hard. They just had to trust that sometimes that mom knows, and I think after a while they kind of got the gist that there were certain things I wasn't going to share with them, but overall it was talk things through.
I love that. I love that. What advice do you have for people trying to find their path in life?
Don't let anybody stop you. Don't let anything tell you that you can't get there. I see a lot of people that just don't dream big enough, maybe. I taught my girls to go for their dreams and, take the time to figure out what you want. I mean, Robin knew from the time she was 6 that she wanted to work with whales. And, well, first she wanted to work with sharks, great whites. I'm really glad she didn't go that route. Orcas are fine, great whites not so much. But she got her scuba license when she was 16. And that scared me enough, except she was still underage, so mom got to go everywhere with her. But yeah, my other daughter, Lori, she wanted to be anything and everything. She changed week to week. One time she wanted a office with a big view, big windows, and she wanted to live in New York, and then she wanted to have a restaurant, and she wanted to do both at the same time, and she, it took her a while to find her niche, and she certainly has. So
no lack of ambition, huh?
Oh heavens, no. She worked. She was really young, and she was working for a hotel on the East Coast, and it was a kind of a fun little place. And she got wined and dined out of that job into a job that she currently has, and she moved to San Francisco for it, and then she moved up to Oregon, to Portland. She's been up here now, I don't know, 16, 17 years maybe. And it's working for a small family kind of thing, 3 guys, and it's advertising. They do wine companies and big hotels and different things, and she's like at least I get the feeling she's like their everything.
Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
Why do you think people don't dream big enough?
Well, I think for a lot of people, it's how they're talked to when they grow up. When I was at the counseling center, God, this brings back so many memories. When I was at the counseling center, we were nonprofit, so we were always trying to make money. And we had a calendar that we put out for the school district, and it had their lunch menu on it. And then I'd sold advertising around it. And I always, on the back, every single month, I'd find some saying or some poem or something that I thought was, and I think of all the years that I did one, it was about the one that I was my most favorite, and the reason I'm answering this is it was about a kid that goes out and mows the lawn, and he misses a spot. And his dad comes out and doesn't say, "Wow, thank you for mowing the lawn." The dad comes out and said, "You missed the spot." And I think that has a lot to do with, how kids grow up and how they feel about themselves and how their self-esteem. If you don't have self-esteem, you can't go on to feel good about yourself and do what you want to do.
Yeah, that's very introspective of you as well. You sound like a great mom.
I love being a mom.
It shows. It absolutely shows.
And I have great grandkids, so not great grandkids.
Yes,
I have
they're great
grandchildren. Yes.
What's the story about the hardest lesson you've ever had to learn?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Mm-hmm. I'm putting you to work here.
Hardest lesson I've ever had to learn. One of the things that comes to mind is I think something everybody learns, and that is that as you grow up, you find out your parents aren't so stupid.
They really knew what they were talking about.
Or at least some things, yeah. I just, and I remember thinking, when my kids were teenagers, I lucked out and had good teenagers, but you find out that, they all go through that phase where mom and dad just,
The rebellion phase.
yeah, oh yeah, and they can't possibly know what they're talking about. And then you get to like 22, 21, 22, 23. It's like, they weren't so stupid after all. And I think that's probably everybody's take, most people's take anyway.
Absolutely.
They grow through that.
Hindsight is 20/20 sort of idea.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And that's a hard time to go through because you want to be an adult, you want to be in charge of yourself, and yet you still don't have the life experiences at that point, not enough life experiences to make all your own decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. How would you advise someone to be happy in life?
That's tough. I think everybody goes through ups and downs with that. I've been married 47 years, and, there's times when I've not felt so great about the marriage, and there's been times when I've been super happy. So, I think that you just kind of have to take each day and commit to yourself where you want to be and what you want to do and what's important to you. I've always loved art, but I never went into art, but for a while when my kids were growing up, I would do woodworking and, different painting and different things, and yet I never really could do it. It's a hard thing to do full time. So when I retired, I said, I'm going to do it. Set up my office, got my paints, everything. And I had been retired maybe 3 weeks, and I fell and broke my arm.
Oh, no.
My right arm.
Oh, no.
And I'm right-handed. And it was like, well, and I crushed, the bones. So it was like, it just, so you never know what each day brings, so you do your best.
How do you get through the ebbs and flows of marriage, those times when you aren't feeling quite as good or confident?
As loving?
Yeah, how do you get through that?
Commitment. Part of me says I grew up Catholic. I'm not Catholic now, but I grew up Catholic, and so I think part of me also learned that, from going to Catholic school and different things, that, you get married for life. But I'm also old enough to know that that doesn't happen for everybody, but I think it's real easy to give up. So, not to say that people that get divorced give up. I worked with abused women, and I'm not saying they gave up, but I think there are times when it's too easy to give up,
Sure.
and you have to say, wait a minute, I need to be here for my kids. I need to get them through. I thought for a long time, and this sounds really terrible, and my husband knows, we went through a real rough patch when the kids were in high school. And, in my own mind, I thought, I'll stay married till the girls graduate. And thank heavens, somewhere in that, into that time frame, we worked it out again and fell in love again, So I think, had I given up too soon, I might have given up.
It's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Tell me about the biggest risk you've ever taken in life.
We started our own business.
That's a big risk.
Oh, yeah. I was pregnant with my oldest, and my husband had done clothes manufacturing, and matter of fact, he did the first pair of OP, OP was big. He did the first pair of, no, Hang 10 was big, and he did the first pair of OP. Do you remember Ocean Pacific? They're the little feet prints. Anyway, they were a swim trunk for guys, and
you know what? I think I do vaguely remember that symbol, the little footprints.
The little footprints.
I vaguely remember.
Yeah. Well, that was Hang 10, is what those footprints were, and they were the beginning of the guys' surf shorts. And then OP was an O and a P, and the guy that owned the company, Jim Jenks, came in one day and said he wanted to compete with Hang Ten, and Les made the first pair of shorts for him, and that became a huge, huge, huge company, um, all over. And so after all that, Les wanted to do his own thing, and he would quit. He left the business he was in, and we started our own. And I was working inpatient psych at the time in an inpatient unit, pregnant, and he started the company with a couple other people, and one was a silent partner that never really got involved, and the other guy turned out to be an alcoholic, and it was not a real good. He was supposed to be doing the sales, and we struggled, and then it was during the Jimmy Carter era, and inflation, just interest rates went through the ceiling. I mean, it wasn't uncommon to pay 23% for anything, it was just cars, anything. And people, the big companies that were buying jeans, because he was a jean manufacturer, and our company was called was called Perfect 10. And he, big companies were saying, I got 6 months worth of stuff in my warehouses, so I'm going to hold off. We're not going to buy right now. Come talk to us in 6 months. We were too little. We couldn't hang in there for 6 months. So he had to let it go, and that was tough, because that was his dream. It was our dream, but it was his dream. And then I had Robin, and we closed the business down, and we ended up moving to Tehachapi from LA, and it turned out to be a good thing, because he went to work for the Department of Corrections for the state of California. And we had a serious talk about whether, that's certainly not my husband. He's a very gentle soul. And we talked long and hard about, whether that was a good decision for us. And we decided, we kind of needed to do something there, and made very little money at the beginning. Department of Corrections was thought of as, the poor guys. And over the years, it challenged Highway Patrol, and they ended up becoming equal with Highway Patrol and making the same amount of money as Highway Patrol in LA County. And we ended up retiring after 29 years he worked for them. We call it doing his time. He paroled, and we got a good income. So thank God. I'm not sure where we would have been if we hadn't. It was kind of an accidental thing, but it was a hard decision to make.
Sure, but like you said earlier, you're happy where you are now.
Oh yeah, yeah. I worked for nonprofits most of the time. I've got diddly squat for income. Social Security does not give you enough to live on. And if we had, when you look back, if Les and I had broken up and not stayed married, if he had not worked for the department, put in the time, it was not a good job. It had some, scary times. He'd go to work, and I wasn't always sure, he was safe. But stuck it out, and had we made different decisions along the path, I'm not sure what we'd be living on now,
Absolutely. There's a lot of lessons in that right there.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to take a chance.
And having some faith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And a little luck along the way.
Cross your fingers. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What's your message to the world?
Love each other and get along. God, the world scares me right now. It's very sad. Ukraine. The I don't want to say crazy people, that's the wrong word. I worked in mental health too long. But the people that, Putin and people, you just wonder how they became as powerful as they are. And I wish, I believe in democracy and I believe in the U.S., but I'm also disillusioned with how the government doesn't always step up when it needs to. Get rid of all the people that just want to be there for, or vote along their Democrat, Republican, do what's right. And screw whatever party you're in. Just do what's right and get rid of the ones that are way out of line.
Look at things objectively.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Florida scares me. Texas scares me. I just don't get where their brains are at. But again, I don't get that the U.S. is keeping people from coming in the borders. That's what the U.S. is. And I feel for the people whose kids have been taken from them and are in camps. I think the U.S. has done some really bad things over the years, and they need to learn from their mistakes and do what's right. And I think the majority tells you what to do what's right.
Why do you think they don't do what's right?
Politics.
Amen.
Yeah. I think that I ran for school board in Tehachapi like 3 times, and I'd come in second every time. And at the time, it was like, God, I wanted to be on school board so bad. I never missed a school board meeting. I was very involved in my kids' schools, public schools. And I'd lose to a NASA engineer. Each time it was a NASA engineer, because we had a Edwards Air Force Base, which was right near us. And every time it was like, they don't even go to school board meetings. But on the ballot, mine said mom. Theirs said NASA engineer. And I'd talk to people and I'd go out and do meetings with people. And they'd like, oh, you're running? Well, how do I, they don't read anything. They didn't know who was running. You just vote. It's like judges. How do we know what a judge is? That's the one thing, you just, I don't know anything about judges. At least other things you kind of look at. But I think school board was the same way. But what I was going to say was, I think at the end of it all, I'm glad I didn't make school board, because I think it was my experience that when you get into positions, I think sometimes you lose your way. I think that, I think you get in and you start going to these meetings and you're told, by the superintendent this or that. I'm just talking about school board in particular, but I think it goes for any political position. And you start seeing things differently, and you're not really seeing what the people need so much as the politics of it. So I'm glad I didn't. I think I was better off keeping my eyes open and doing what I could to do what I thought was right.
That's beautiful. That's all I've got for you. Thank you so much. I won't tax you anymore.
Oh, I love talking about the past.
Good. I'm glad. These are tough questions, so thank you.
Sometimes they are, yeah. You want somebody else to talk to my hubby.
Yeah?
He was he and I are very different on politics. We didn't used to be, but we are now. Very opposites. And, very interesting. But he was a correctional officer for, like I said, for almost 30 years. And he has a real interesting take on a lot of things, especially about prison system. And, he saw a lot.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Maybe when we're all wrapped up here, I'll get your contact information.
Yeah, we're just right here.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our house actually
right along
goes up the park. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.